So we're here at Brands Hatch in Kent. T3 Racing invited us down for the day. Apparently, they've got a bit of a surprise in store for us. All I can see is the massive race trucks here, so let's go and see what's inside.
So when we got in the garage, this is what they had in store for us. They had all 4 of the bikes that T3 Racing put out in the support classes to the BSB Championship. So starting at the beginning, we got Jesse James Jones, what a name. Jesse James Jones and his T3 Racing TTC bike, which is the Triple Challenge bike. Then we had Alex Alatista, pretty sure that's how it's pronounced. We had his Superstock 600 bike. Then we had Alex Olsen's Supersport Evo bike. And finally, Luke Jones's full-blown British Supersport bike.
Okay, so our first bike to ride today is the Triumph Triple Challenge TTC bike from T3 Racing. It's a fairly standard bike and it's the closest one to the stock bike out of everything we'll be riding today. So next up, we're going to ride the Superstock 600 bike. Okay, this is like a slightly hopped up version of the T3 bike which we rode first. You can change a few bits and pieces on these. They've got full exhaust systems on. You can change all the fork internals. The rear shocks are different, but they're still pretty damn close to the standard bike. This runs about 137 horsepower, so it's a quick old thing. So just hopped off the Superstock 600 bike. I've got to say, after riding the Triple Challenge bike before it, I wasn't expecting that big a jump. You know, the Superstock's a production-based race bike, but geez, it's a huge step. The power off the corner and the way the thing drives it's a real next level from the T3 bike. So now we've got the Supersport Evo bike. Now this is kind of a turned-down version of the full-blown Supersport bike we'll be riding later. You can change anything from kind of the top of the pistons upwards, so you can machine the cylinder head, you can adjust the ports, change the shape of those. You can't change the camshafts, but you can adjust the timing. And then on the bottom end, you have to keep the standard generator and standard manufacturer ECU as well. So the guys at MSV have been really kind. They've given us a bit of a private track at lunchtime to get some filming done and hey, get some bike laps in with no one else on it. Let's go. Okay, so this is the bike I've been waiting to ride all day long. This is the full-blown, full-bore British Supersport race bike, Luke Jones's one. Now this one has got the most power here. It's actually a year older than the other ones. This is the older version of the Triumph 675, but with the modifications it's got to it, it's by far the quickest. So we've had a whole day razzing around on these bikes now. It's been a fantastic day, you know. I did a lot of racing a few years back, and you ride one of these bikes at a time and you change the next season. You never really get to try them back to back, so it's a real unique opportunity to ride 4 bikes that look similar but actually completely different once you get used to them. But riding any race bike on track, it's such a step forward from riding a road bike. The biggest difference, really, is the suspension setup. You know, your road bike suspension is set up so that, you know, it doesn't give you back problems riding down a bumpy road, so that it can cope with potholes. And when you've got something that has not only had the suspension revalved and set up just for track, it's the development that's gone into it. It's not just a man that's bolted on a thing and made it better. You know, these have had, you know, full season plus all the pre-season testing of constant development, fine-tuning to get a real good base setting, so that the bikes, you know, are so planted on track. When you go into a corner, you can brake so much later and so much harder than you would on a road bike, because you've got the support from the springs, the support from the suspension. It doesn't want to bottom out and push wide all the time. The thing's sat nicely in the stroke,
when you come off the brakes, because the geometry is so much more aggressive with the race bikes, give or take, they'll just race into an apex. And you know, on a road bike where you can sometimes feel them bouncing and moving around out of shape, I'm talking about the 675 here, and again, only when you're really, really pushing it. On the race bikes, you can be so aggressive with them, and they're planted the whole time. They just fire into an apex. You know, first few laps out there, I found myself crashing into the inside curb because I wasn't expecting the bike to turn that well. And then on the way out the corner again, you can be really aggressive. You're pushing these bikes around, sliding them about, but they're always stable. There's something really strong underneath you to lean on when you're trying to push harder for a lap time. TTC bike was one that surprised me the most today, actually. You know, essentially, as I said earlier, it's not a massively tuned up bike. It's a road bike with some suspension work and race body work. You know, that is the whole ethos of that formula, is to keep the cost down. But the step on from a road bike is massive because of the development in the suspension. You do start to find a limit when you're trying to push for a lap time. You get frustrated in places when you're between gears, or you know, second gear's too low for a corner, but third gear is too high for a corner, so you can't get off the apex. So you feel yourself making compromises in your riding as you go around. Stepping up from the TTC bike onto the Superstock bike, that was definitely the biggest surprise today. Well, I didn't think the Superstock bike was going to be much quicker. I mean, all you're allowed to do is change the head gasket in terms of engine tuning, and remap them with a power commander, or you know, like a fueling controller. But the step on was a massive, the mid-range power, the way it drives off the apex of the corner, it really, really impressed me, and almost caught me out a couple of times after the TTC bike. It made the TTC bike feel slow. Alex Olsen's Evo bike is the new model 675. It's Supersport Evo, so it's a much more tuned package than the Superstock 600 bike, and because of that, you find yourself making less and less compromises in your riding style. Because of the way it's set up to control engine braking on the way into a corner, you can brake harder, you can brake later, you can downshift more aggressively, and the thing's not skating all over the place. It's a bit more stable. I have to say, you know, every now and then you get on bikes that you really don't want to come in. You don't want to stop riding, and every checkered flag at the end of a session, you're cursing. And this Supersport Evo bike was definitely like that. I just wanted to go round and round and round and round and round. Instantly put my race head back on, instantly made me want to take up racing again, instantly made me want to kidnap Alex Olsen, lock him in the back of his van, and you know, dress up in his leathers and steal his race career, because it's just such a fantastic bike to ride, and the harder you push it, the better it feels. It was a real good experience. And finally we get to the Supersport bike. Again, a little step on further from the Evo bike. It's a bit less of a jump because, again, Luke's on the older bike, so it felt odd because of the riding position. It had a skinny seat, you know, the bars in it slightly, so it was a bit of a odd comparison to the Supersport Evo bike. But the bit that impressed me, again, because the Supersport bike is allowed to use the Motec ECU, you get a few extra clever systems that just help you out. And one of the ones that I liked the most was the air bleed system, which essentially means that when you snap the throttle shut and dump it down the gears, the ECU actually opens the throttle fractionally, not to accelerate you, but to stop the engine braking at the rear wheel. You could do it manually, but you've got enough to think about on the way into a corner. And it was incredible. Coming down Paddock Hill into Druids, up there it's from fourth back to second on the Supersport bike, and I didn't have to blip the throttle, I didn't have to ease the clutch out. I literally went up the hill, bang bang, down 2 gears, dumped the clutch, turned it. No shakes, no slides, the bike just sorts itself out, and you're in the corner. It improves your lap times because you can then push and you can focus on your braking and your steering and all the important aspects of riding without having to worry about what the rear wheel's up to behind you. Best day of work ever. What a cracking day that was. I mean, the opportunity to ride these bikes, I've got to give a massive thank you to the guys at T3 Racing for sorting it out. And, you know, Tony Scott, T3 Racing, they're the ones who organise this, but my biggest thanks goes to the riders. You know, I know what it takes to put these bikes into a race. I know how much effort they've got in them. And I know their whole lives are wrapped up in these bikes. So to trust me to come and thrash them around a circuit, that's pretty brave of them, and I'm really grateful for that. MSV track days, as always, has been fantastic. They're always a real well-organised track day, which is kind of why we picked them. But today they've sorted us out, giving us plenty of time on track to get out and get this testing done on these bikes.